Hey everyone, Dan Rubino here, Windows Central, and this is your Microsoft and Windows News Roundup. All right, first up, have you heard gaming on Xbox sucks? Okay, maybe that's a little harsh, but let's be honest here. Xbox has had a problem with portfolio and first-party games. Well, that may be changing soon as Microsoft apparently has scooped up Damon Baker from Nintendo, and he had headed up their indie game list for, well, the Nintendo Switch and their other titles. And if you go back a few videos ago, I talk about the Switch, and one of the reasons I like it so much is all the indie titles on it. It's basically running Steam on this little portable console. Well, that same talent apparently is now part of Microsoft. Fingers crossed in 2019, 2020, he brings some great titles to the Xbox, which, is really amazing hardware. We just need some software to catch up to Sony. All right, Microsoft ToDo. It started off really rough, especially compared to Wunderlist, which is what it's replacing. If you haven't tried ToDo, well, it's on iOS, Android, and Windows. Well, this week it's getting file attachments for everyone. This came out in beta about a week or two ago, but now you can do it yourself. That means when you're creating a list, you can attach images and notes and whatever you want to that list. Now, if you want to share that list with other people, you can, but attachments don't yet work with it. So Microsoft will be bringing attachments to shared lists in the coming future, but this is a big step. I've been covering ToDo now for the last year, and it went from no updates to a ton of updates and features, and that team seems to be rolling full speed ahead. It is the same team that made Wunderlist, so they should be able to deliver a solid product going forward. But if you haven't tried ToDo, you should go give it a shot now. Do you use Cortana on Xbox? Probably not. Let's not talk about Cortana too much, but if you are in a region that actually supports Cortana and you want to use it on the Xbox and you don't have Kinect anymore, well, our own Jess Corden wrote up a little guide talking about how you can actually do it very simply by installing a tiny microphone on your Xbox controller. That sounds a little devious, especially in the age of everybody listening to you, but hey, if you want to give it a shot, go check out that article. It's a pretty cheap mod to do, and yes, now you can have Cortana built onto your Xbox and use it with ease. All right, what is Windows Lite OS and who is it for? We've talked a lot about on this channel about Windows Lite, which some of you may know as Windows Core OS. Well, our own Zach Bowden, senior reporter for Windows Central, has done a nice little article explaining a little bit more about Windows Lite OS, which we do expect to hear about coming in 2019. For those of you who think this is Windows RT all over again, I'm here to tell you I don't think so. I've actually seen a little bit what Windows Lite OS looks like. It looks Windows-ish, but you would never confuse it for being full Windows 10 or Windows 10 Pro. This is going to be its own thing. They'll be sold on new device experiences coming later this year. We think this will be mostly a competitor to Chrome OS and thin client computing, which I've argued in the past is going to be a big deal, especially with Windows 10 and ARM. So go check out that article for more information. Do you still email? Of course you do. So you're probably using Outlook, and if not, well, you should. Now, back in September 2018, Microsoft showed a brand new redesign for the iOS Outlook app, and well, we give you a sneak preview, and I'm happy to report it is now rolling out to everyone. So this is a brand new design. It actually looks a lot more like the one on Android, so it's more colorful and just looks a lot better. Now, if you're wondering if the iOS version is going to match Android completely, no, I've talked to the Outlook team before, and they said they're tailoring the experience for each device. So the one on Windows 10 is going to look like itself versus the one on Android versus the one on iOS. But if you're really holding out for dark mode, don't worry. The teams are supposed to start working on dark mode very soon, so expect that in the next few months. We'll, of course, be covering that and following that story. And finally, Microsoft announced its Q2 fiscal year 2019 earnings, and boy, they make a ton of money, $32.5 billion to be exact in revenue, and that just met expectations for Wall Street, which is pretty solid. Another good quarter for Microsoft. Let's talk a little bit about those numbers, though, in specifics. All right, Microsoft productivity and business processes, so that's all the Office stuff. A little bit boring, but still, it's up by 13% and made $10.1 billion. Not too shabby. There's also Intelligent Cloud, even more boring, but still super important. That is Azure and all the cloud computing stuff that competes with Amazon. So that's up by 20% and now hit $9.4 billion. But the stuff we're really excited about is more personal computing, which is up by 7% to $13 billion. Now, the big story within more personal computing is Surface. That's where all those numbers lie in. Wow, what a big quarter for Microsoft. It was up 39% to nearly $1.9 billion. To put that in perspective, just a few years ago, we were talking about how Surface was a new billion-dollar business for Microsoft, and now, well, it's almost a $2 billion business. Part of that increase in momentum was due to Surface Go, Surface Laptop 2, and Surface Pro 6. If you saw the heavy discounts for Surface Pro 6 over the holiday season, I think that drove a lot of that. I'm also hearing Surface Go is doing very well. In fact, inventory is low at a lot of places, including Best Buy and Microsoft themselves, as apparently a lot of schools and education institutions are buying them up. So Surface Go seems to be a hit. We don't have firm numbers on those sales, but revenue doesn't lie. Microsoft's Surface division is doing very well. Now, tying into that is Windows OEM revenue, which is actually down 5%. That may sound bad, but as Microsoft explained on their earnings call, actually they see the PC market as healthy. And healthy here means it's plateaued and it's basically flat. Why was it down 5%? They didn't call out Intel specifically, but they called out Intel. The idea here is that Intel was unable to meet demand for its processors and chips. In other words, they were late to market with some of their new chips, probably Whiskey Lake, and they didn't have enough chips to go to the OEM partners. Therefore, they could not sell as many PCs and laptops. They do expect this to carry over into Q3, so expect similar numbers for next quarter as well. But still, the market as a whole is still having strong demand, and we expect that to continue through next year. All right, so that does it for your Microsoft and Windows News Roundup. Now, as always, you can catch us on the Windows Central podcast, recorded every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch that here on YouTube or mixer.com/Windows Central. Otherwise, leave me a comment and tell me what you think of this and how we can improve it. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take care, everyone. You got a nice makeover. So we actually previewed this back at Ignite last year at 2000. When was Ignite? September? No.
August or October, I think. I gotta check.
Yeah, 18.